So I had an interesting comment today on my video about Zach Polanski and the hit pieces against him and so on. And the comment was basically, talking about reformist policies and how it's uneconomical to keep all these people in the country on benefits, all these, refugees, migrants who come here, seeking a better life, I guess, away from the countries they've lived in previously. And they're talking about how it costs 350 billion or so. That's the total welfare bill, and I'm not certain that's an entirely accurate figure. And I wanted to do a video all about the economics of these mass deportations that they're talking about, and the economics of dealing with immigration with a very harsh and heavy-handed kind of policy making. And this is the policy making of reform. And they're saying they're going to build these detention centres, only in green constituencies. And I ran a few numbers trying to figure out how much it would cost to build these detention facilities. And I went from the cost of the average cost of a prison place in the United Kingdom. Detention centres actually cost more money than prisons to build. So the average cost of a prison place in the United Kingdom is £600,000. And then I took a figure from this Tory peer of the number of migrants in the United Kingdom, 745,000, and multiplied the two numbers together to produce an estimate of what the costs would be to detain all these people. And it comes out at something like 447 billion. So actually it is cheaper to deal with migration in the community, and it's cheaper to give them benefits than it is to detain them in secure facilities. And I'm assuming what Nigel Farage has been describing are secure facilities. And that, by the way, is merely the construction costs as well. It doesn't reflect ongoing costs, and it doesn't reflect things like legal damages that could be incurred via breaches of human rights legislation. And I imagine in secure facilities, a lot of people would sue damages for false imprisonment, for example. And then there's Nigel Farage's claim that he can deal with immigration, these mass deportations, within 2 weeks. And I think that's very optimistic, since the countries they'd be sent back to have no obligation to take them under international law, and probably wouldn't want to take them. And it might cause all sorts of diplomatic fallout around the globe with various countries if we were to merely send them back. And it's like, well, there's a humanitarian cost, obviously. Are people really not going to die in these situations? Like the Nazis, I know it's a cliched sort of comparison to make, but the Nazis didn't start out with the plan of building concentration camps. They initially ghettoized the Jews in certain regions of cities within, for example, Poland. And then they later built concentration camps and extermination camps. The final solution wasn't actually enacted until 1941, i.e. 2 years into World War II. And, it's not, I don't think the majority of the German people or the supporters of the Nazis would have supported them on the basis of the fact that they're planning on exterminating a large group of people. It certainly didn't start out that way. The Nazis' rhetoric was never really like that from the beginning. And we're seeing something very similar with reform. I think a very similar sort of pattern. And it really deeply upsets me that so many people want this sort of thing. That these policies of mass deportations appeal to so many people. Trump rose to power with it in the United States. Fortunately, Trump hasn't carried out all that many deportations, whatever he would like to to say in his press junkets. But there was more deportations under Barack Obama than there have been under Trump in his most recent term in office. So his immigration stance is just bluster. and it's not reflected in the data and the statistics. I hope really that reform would turn out to be that limp-wristed, and it would end up being something like that when they build like a few detention facilities or something with the portion of the budget that a decent democratic state would allow them to have, and some people get sent back somewhere and of course a lot of fuss in the media and so on, but it wouldn't actually be that many people deported, which I think is more realistic than the alternative, which is building concentration camps. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But I mean, oh my god, people do fear this sort of thing. It creates a lot of fear among the public. No, we can't do that, obviously. And hopefully a party advocating that would never get into power in Britain. But then we can only hope. I think these local elections are going to be a big indicator of how much we can hope and to what extent they really have attained influence and dominance within the minds of the people, acting as a democratic bloc. It's going to be fascinating to find out. But then again, I think that the Greens' popularity has probably been understated in the polls, and I think that trying to gauge their popularity online, they are sweeping it. They're doing really, really well. Loads of people like them. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting few years lead up to the next general election. But I probably rambled on long enough. No, we can't build concentration camps in Britain. If that's really your stance, I don't think you should get a say in the matter, because it's a threat to national security. It's a threat from national security from other countries who might seek to harm us as a result of our actions. Even our neighbouring countries like France, for instance, they've got nuclear weapons. They might take issue with it or something. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching.